Whether you're a Mario, a Yoshi, or a Princess Peach, we welcome you all to Once More with Feelings. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth.
And this week we are going to be talking about one of my favorites, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is 2010, directed by Edgar Wright. It's based on a graphic novel series by Brian Lee O'Malley. Mm-hmm. The film follows Scott Pilgrim, a 22-year-old slacker, bassist for the Toronto-based band Sex Bomb. Scott falls for the mysterious Ramona Flowers, but to date her, he must defeat her 7 evil exes in increasingly surreal and stylized battles. As Scott navigates these confrontations, he is forced to confront his own emotional immaturity, past relationships, and the consequences for his actions. This film is a kinetic, heartfelt journey through love, self-worth, and personal growth.
Exactly. So, let's get our feelings out of the way, because I have so much about this movie that I could share.
Can we do just a little bit on Edgar Wright real quick?
Yes, please do.
So let's just do the director thing, just so everybody understands who actually directed the film.
Because Edgar Wright is amazing.
First, he did one of my favorite movies, Shaun of the Dead.
Followed by?
In 2004. Baby Driver?
No, I was going to say...
Last Night in Soho? Because that's the other ones I...
Well, The World's End, I thought was always like... Even though it's not a sequel to Shaun of the Dead, I always felt like it was.
No, but it's so good and it's so underrated.
It really is. And Hot Fuzz.
I'm not a fan of Hot Fuzz.
I'm not a fan, but if you want to go for
as much as I love all the primaries, I love the actors because they're Shaun of the Dead and they're
Simon
World's
Pegg.
End.
I mean, Simon Pegg is apparently, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg are best buddies at this point, know?
And as much as I love them, Hot Fuzz just didn't do it for me.
It was not, of all of the Simon Pegg movies with Edgar, it's not the best.
It was like watching the second Super Troopers. Mm-hmm. Just didn't have the magic.
I don't like angry. I don't like mean Simon Pegg. I like dorky Simon Pegg. I like Sean.
I do.
And so mean Simon Pegg, and he is a mean asshole in Hot Fuzz. He's an angry dick.
True enough.
So it's very hard to like him in that one, though. It's still a fucked up movie that I do appreciate. It is, again, not my favorite, but I will still watch it if it's on.
Right. Edgar Wright, as you know, he's known for his really razor-sharp editing.
Yes.
So he knows how to cut things together and make them fit really nicely with each other.
He is the king of the... I don't know what it's called, but like scene, like face, you like the multiple.
Oh yeah, no, he weaves everything together in this freaking mosaic. He makes stained glass.
He does.
That's what he does.
So I think that doing Scott Pilgrim really just makes sense that he did it, because he already has that comic book style of frames, and he. And even though this is a graphic novel, it is done definitely in the comic book style. Oh, I've got so much, y'all. I've got so much. Okay.
So how did you feel when you first saw this movie?
I was so freaking excited to see this movie. I don't even remember seeing the trailers for it. I don't remember it. I just remember always having this movie in my life. I think we were living in this came out in 2010. Did I see this at the farmhouse? I don't remember if I saw it at the farmhouse or not. But we didn't because we didn't have cable at the farmhouse.
No, we saw it at the apartment.
Yep. So that was in 2012. But so I didn't even know about this movie for 2 years because again, we didn't have cable. We
had nothing.
We had nothing. We had a DVD player that played Bye Bye Birdie
and Madagascar.
And Enchanted on a loop, because that was what our youngest was really into.
Right. We watched what our youngest wanted to watch.
We did. And whatever we could stream on YouTube.
Right.
So it wasn't until we moved to the apartment and we moved out of state that I saw it and my mind was blown. I was like, this is the greatest fucking movie ever. And then I found out it was a graphic novel. So needless to say, my sorry behind needed to read every one of them. So I read every one of the graphic novels.
I had to take her pen away from her because
I
she was
keep
intent on
fidgeting.
clicking
I'm
it.
sorry.
And I knew she was going to at some point, so I took it from her for her own safety.
Yes.
And for mine and the cat's.
Yes, I have ADD and I need to play with something at all times.
She's a fidget.
Yes, it's lucky I don't click our clicker all the time. So yes, I read every one of those graphic novels. And now it's been a while. I had to refresh myself on a few points.
Right.
But
Obviously.
You
don't have autobiographical memory.
No.
So you don't have that ability.
So yes, I was excited about it. I loved it. It is never not going to be a great movie.
I have to say, I'm excited to do this with you right now because I know how much you love this film. And it actually makes me excited. So my feelings on this film, when you wanted to watch it, I was like, eh. Mm-hmm. I didn't really care that much. I got about 3/4 of the way through it, and I'm like, okay, I think I love this film. And I don't like that I love this film. And I couldn't place my finger on what it was that was bothering me, on why I didn't want to love this film. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into that as we go through it.
Yeah.
But I did end up having a deep, not a really excited, like I wasn't like excited and impassioned to watch this movie.
Yeah.
But I had a deep admiration for the music.
The music. So there was this window.
And I'm not a music person at heart. Unfortunately,
No.
I want to be, but I just don't listen to that much music.
No.
And it made me want to be more musical. It made me want to be more musically inclined, or to learn to play the bass, or to learn how to put your finger on one key on a synthesizer and make a couple of dragons show up.
So the one thing about Scott Pilgrim is, so while the movie came out in 2010, I believe that, I didn't write this down, but I believe that O'Malley was writing this obviously a few years beforehand.
Right.
So there's this like window of music in the early 2000s. And yes, a lot of it did come out of Canada. And
Thankfully so.
It was like we were almost going back to rock's origins. Like we were getting some of this late 90s grunge feel, but not like alternative grunge feel to music. And being that is my music.
But it's almost like they wrapped heavy metal.
They were bringing back a sound.
It's like someone had heavy metal and they took a pillow over it and they were smothering it.
Yeah, that's that whole lo-fi aspect.
Yeah.
That was really, really
that's what it actually makes me feel good.
Oh yeah, the muted bass that you hear.
It makes me feel good inside. It moves me without doing a lot. You know?
This movie, the story is your basic story of boy meets girl.
Girl has an interdimensional wormhole.
Yes, and see, and that's another thing about this story. Both, they don't really, and again, I don't remember 100% of the comic or the graphic novel, but I don't remember them explaining it. And I like that this universe, this world that Scott Pilgrim lives in, the fact that he beats the crap out of guys and they turn into to coins like a video game, nobody notices. Nobody says anything.
It's not enough for bus fare.
It's not enough for bus fare. It's not blinked at. Nobody seems to be like, dude, what the fuck?
Although they seem to be amazed that he's fighting.
Yeah, well, so...
And I'm not sure if they're amazed because Scott is he's a quintessential slacker.
Well, okay, so before we get into any of that, let me touch on something. And this is not intended to be biblical, but this is a biblical reference. Not every character, but there are 8 characters 7 characters. There are 7 characters that are given a deadly sin. Sorry, I was looking at my numbers, and my numbers are not the same thing that I've written down. So each character, and again, not every character, but there are 7 characters that are given a sin. And if you keep that in mind, you actually see the sins. You see that sin embodied. Matthew Patel, he is the first X. He is wrath. He wants revenge.
Yeah, I got that. See that.
Lucas Lee, pride.
Okay.
Envy Adams is obviously envy.
Yeah, got that.
Todd,
Her name even.
Yeah,
she changed her name to
yeah.
fit it. Yes.
Todd Ingram, gluttony.
Okay.
Roxy is lust.
Yep.
Gideon is greed. And Scott is sloth. So knowing that Scott is sloth, it explains why nobody expects anything from him other than what he is.
Yeah.
And the only person who if you notice, who is utterly and extremely disappointed in him is Kim Pine. And the reason, okay, y'all, this could be a long episode. I'm going to try, but I'm going to go on
Okay,
rants.
so let's do it this way. If this becomes a 2-parter, I will cut it so that we don't go well into 2 hours.
Yes.
And at an hour and a half, like our normal program, and I will publish the second part the next week. So we'll still release these consecutively, and then we'll do our next one after this. Okay. And we have a movie picked out for the next movie. But if this is going to be a 2-parter, I'm fine with that. This is your movie. I'm here to see your vision. I'm going to be supporting you with my own observations and my own feelings. But this is your movie.
Yes.
And I don't want to cut it short. You held with me on Knight's Tale.
And I like Knight's Tale too.
I know, but you held with me on that.
Yes.
Because I kept going on it. Because I wanted to keep expounding
There's
because
so
there's
much.
so much to see.
And that there's so much information. And somehow I managed to put it all on one page, but that's because most of it's living in my head.
Right. So let's just not worry about that.
Okay.
You talk. I'll edit this as I can, and we will fit it into 2 episodes, and if we need to, and move it to next week as well. Don't worry, dear listeners. We will have the next movie right after that, and we will have a 2-parter if this happens.
Okay. So here's the thing. I'm not going to go scene by scene in my explanation, but I'm going to delve into characters, and I want to delve into a lot of the trivia and a lot of the outside influences of this movie. Obviously, video games, huge influence in this movie. So
sure.
They actually wrote a letter to the creators of The Legend of Zelda, and that's why they were able to use Zelda music throughout the whole entire thing. They got full permission. And they were, so Brian O'Malley is inspired by a song by Plumtree, a Canadian girl band. And the song is called Scott Pilgrim. And so, and what is funny is like when you see at the end of the movie, he's wearing the SP shirt.
Right.
It's not actually Scott Pilgrim. That is actually, that is the Scott Pilgrim shirt. When he's wearing the Zero shirt is Smashing Pumpkins. There's a lot of weird references to different things. And also one of the bands in one of the battles is called The Infinite Sadness.
Right.
And that is a reference to Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and The Infinite Sadness. So
it's kind of an homage to the sounds of the time.
Yeah, and Scott is a huge, apparently, he's a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. The 7 Evil X's came about because Brian Lee O'Malley, his wife, before she dated him, had dated 7 guys named Matt. And so he thought that was funny, the 7 Matts. And that's why Matthew Patel had kept his name as Matthew.
Oh, nice.
There's a lot of funny...
That's really sweet, actually, that he's kind of like interweaving these all
He has a
through
lot
his
of
life.
references to people that he knew in his real life,
Yeah,
too.
that's good.
So, like, he knew a Stacy. And so Stacy in the... which is Scott Pilgrim's sister, Stacy, in the movie... Anna Kendrick, she's wearing the Stacy's name tag from the original Stacy, from the actual Stacy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there's a lot of weird little
It
things.
sounds like Brian wrote a lot from his emotions.
Yes.
And about his passions. And that's a good thing because we're an emotional podcast.
We
We
are.
want to make sure that we're getting those things in. So as we can, let's talk about the emotions behind those.
Yes. I am going to get into Kim because Kim is as cold as...
I love Kim.
Okay, cold. Kim doesn't blink.
I know.
She looks down, she looks to the side, but she does not blink ever. And it's they were actually told to not blink when they were on screen, but she did not blink, and because they wanted
That's
it to
Alison
have...
Pill for you.
Yeah, that's Alison Pill.
Alison Pill is an excellent actress.
She is.
I loved her. Well, there's several shows that I loved her
Yes.
in, but the one that I loved the most was Newsroom.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because her character goes through so much shit.
Oh, and she does such an excellent job of portraying these different issues that she goes through.
Mm-hmm. And her
some
character just changes with those issues.
When she has panic attacks, I know those.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel them when she has them because I've had them. Mm-hmm. And I think she does an excellent job. And
Yes.
she's such a good person, too.
The one thing I really did also appreciate was whoever did the casting, and I really wished I had looked that up. If you look at the pictures of the characters in the comic, and even like when they did the animated one, the
Yeah.
special, you can see those actors.
Yeah.
Those actors. I mean, Michael Cera is fucking Scott Pilgrim, and he picked him because of because Brian O'Malley. Was it Brian O'Malley? It was either O'Malley or Edgar. I think it was Edgar. Had seen him on Arrested Development and said, "No, that's my Scott Pilgrim." So a lot of these actors look their parts. I mean,
Right.
it's perfect. The only one that did not look exact was Brie, because Brie Larson did not look good in the red wig, and Envy
But
Adams
you
has
cannot beat Brie on...
no. Brie.
I mean, she's able to sing the
Yep.
music. She
So Metric,
is awesome.
the band Metric wrote that song, and there are two versions of that song.
Oh, yeah.
The one that was sung by the lead singer from Metric, and then the one with Brie Larson. And the testing, just that one was the better. Everybody seemed to respond to that version better. But she wasn't sure how to portray Envy Adams, so she actually watched the adult awards. And I honestly, when I see Envy Adams, I see a young Tracy Lords, and that's just how I picture now whenever I see
Right.
Envy Adams. So let me go back to Kim.
Sure.
Kim Pine. So Kim Pine is the only person who is extremely disappointed in Scott Pilgrim all the time. She's always, if your life had a face, I'd punch it, and that's taken straight from the graphic novel. And also keep in mind that he had only finished the first two of the, there's, I think, there's like 4 or 5, maybe 6. I can't remember now. But he'd only finished the first two before they did the movie.
Right.
So, and it was the first one is Scott Pilgrim and His Precious Life or something life. And then the second one is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So in the movie, Kim makes references to when her and Ramona are speaking, and she says something about Scott, and she's like, "Yeah, I dated him. And he's an idiot." They were first boyfriend and girlfriend. They
Right.
were each other's first.
School.
They
Yes.
went to school. They broke up because Scott moved back home, back to wherever he was living before he moved there. So in the bar scene, when he is obviously distressed after fighting the not Lucas Lee, Todd Ingram, he's pissed. He's kind of annoyed. And this is
Right.
before Roxy shows up at the bar. And she's like, "Well, don't you have any, evil exes or whatever? And what about Kim?" And he's like, "Kim and I are great." And she's got this like scowl on her face because she's not great. She still cares about this idiot. And this idiot does not understand that she cares about him.
Right.
So she's angry. And she's...
And I think she's also angry because he never acknowledged.
Yeah.
He never acknowledged the impact.
He never did.
That their relationship may have had on her.
Yes. So she was seeing a guy named Simon Lee. And Scott went up to him and punched him when he was hugging her. And he went up and punched him. Because, see, Scott used to be a real asshole. And even Kim kept saying he was an ass. And he even said, I was an ass. And what he tells Ramona in the bar is that, oh yeah, well, what do you want me to tell you? That I had to fight an army of guys, and there was a 7-foot tall guy in a purple suit, and I had to fight him, and he had lasers coming out of his hands. In the graphic,
that was an actual thing.
in the graphic novel, that is what he tells everybody. But what happens is there's the subspace. The subspace that everybody acknowledges exists. They just know it exists. He doesn't know that it exists until he meets Ramona.
Right.
But the subspace is apparently everywhere.
Well, he's encountering it even before he actually meets Ramona.
Ramona.
I don't know why I couldn't say that. But he thinks it's just daydreaming or dreaming.
Yes. And so at one point in the graphic novel, he's hiding in the subspace, spying on Gideon. Gideon knows he's there, and he implants memories. So what Scott remembers, is that he did fight a guy in a purple suit who was 7 feet tall with lasers coming out of his hands, and he did hit him so hard that he saw the curvature of the earth. But that's not what happened. But that's what he remembers happening because of Gideon implanting those memories. And the fact that it's such a throwaway, sarcastic line in the movie is great. I freaking love it. But there's so much more to this world. And again, the beauty of this universe where everybody accepts that people turn into coins when they get punched and they get knocked out or die. Pseudo, quote unquote, die. That there are subspaces where you find a door with a star on it, you go through it. And the star reference, you see it in her purse, the Ramona purse. I love the Ramona purse because that is like in the comic as well. There's just so much. I'm like, oh, my mind is a jumble. So yes, Kim is very angry with him because there was no resolve to their relationship. Now, granted, she admits that her and Simon were starting to fall apart anyway. So it was like that relationship was out the door. But she was with him.
But he took her choice away.
He took her choice away. And now, again, she was with Simon, but it was never like, it wasn't a love. It was just dating. She loved Scott. And the fact that, like I said, they were each other's firsts for everything. And the fact that he just left and then never bothered to... And she didn't even know he had moved. Someone else told her. He didn't even have the courtesy to tell her.
But that's his thing, though. That's Scott's thing, is not to confront.
And he
does not acknowledge.
He's so lazy.
He doesn't acknowledge. No, it's not just... I don't think it's that he's just lazy. I think he honestly... doesn't think about them.
He doesn't.
Because he doesn't see that the impact happens and he just moves on. Mm-hmm. He thinks everyone's fine because he's fine.
Oh, yeah. And like where Ramona is also a runner, and I think that's probably part of why they work together. She's also a runner, but she's a runner, but she's not lazy. She's not that sloth. She's not like complacent in her life. Scott is... Until he meets Ramona, he's very complacent in his life. He is, whatever comes in front of him is what he deals with. And while, yes, envy breaks his heart, he didn't fight for her.
Yeah.
He didn't fight for Knives. And Knives is a whole other story. That little girl did not deserve Scott. I mean, he was just...
Well, he didn't deserve her.
Well, yeah, he didn't. I mean, she didn't deserve the shit, is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. She was just there.
Because out of everyone that's just talking about the movie, because that's what I know.
Yeah.
Ellen Wong, who plays Knives Chow, does such a great job in this film. Mm-hmm. And she is older than Michael Cera.
By 3 years, yeah.
So it's crazy how young she looks
She
comparatively.
does. But I like that knowing that she was 3 years older than him.
Makes it a little bit better.
Yes.
But Knives is the only one that I see in this entire film who truly learns something about herself.
Oh, yeah.
And truly learns to stand for herself. In the end, she's the one who is able to stand on their own.
Yeah.
And that's pretty remarkable. And she's the youngest
Of all of them.
of all of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you go by the character age.
I mean, she's a complete crackhead. I love her, but she is a complete nut job. The way she kind of obsesses on Scott and like when she's dyeing her hair and her drama.
She has the exuberance of youth. And
She does.
that I can forgive.
Yeah. So, let me try. I'm looking at my character list and seeing who do I want to hit up next. Ramona has, I mean, we know Ramona's, her path because you see it played out in the film.
Yeah.
It's that does not deviate much. Spoiler alert, her and Scott don't necessarily stay together. They're on again, off again, on again, off again throughout the graphic novels. And rightly so. I mean, honestly, the on again is the ridiculous part. But there's times where she walks away from him, but then she goes back to him. And then he walks away from her. Not as easily, but there's a lot with their relationship. And it's weird. It's weird. Ramona has a cat too, and the cat's name is Gideon. Go figure. So I don't know a lot about all of the characters' backgrounds, but Gideon, the way the movie ends is great, but that is not 100% how that story arc ends in the graphic novel. He has a machine and he is collecting his own 7 exes, and he has his ex-girlfriends in these little like stasis pods of sort, and he wants Ramona to complete his collection. That's part of the microchip on the back of her neck. It's the control.
Right.
So there's a lot about if you want to go deeper into like the feminist side of that movie, where you've got Gideon who is wanting to control her and his exes. You've got all of the exes who really don't address Ramona, and they're like, hey, how's it going? And things like that. But they don't really address her in any type of a healthy way.
Right.
She is an object. She is a prize. And Scott's really not much better with that. He talks to her, yeah. But why is he fighting? I mean, yeah, he says he loves her, but they just really met. So why is he fighting this fight? And you don't really get
It just
that.
seems like what it is that this is the neurotypical section of the book here. Mm-hmm. They fight, they fall in love because that is how it's scripted.
True.
Because there's no real emotional connection, except that they are both in the same place and they both happen to be the opposite sex, and they both are attracted to each other in some variation.
Yes.
So therefore, they must couple. They must be together, and it's just assumed that that's what's going to happen. Now, given that Ramona is at least bi, we know that she's bi in some way.
Yes.
Bi-curious is what she said.
Bi-curious. Well, I'm bi-furious.
She could have been with any of them. Honestly, I think she should have been with Kim. I think Kim would have killed everybody to get to her.
Oh, she would have. I think
If Kim was so inclined to be, if she were gay or if she were bisexual,
oh, yeah.
she may very well have fought everyone, including Scott, for her.
I think so. And I think it would have been...
But I think if you're talking about why would Scott Pilgrim fight for Ramona, I think it's because she was there.
Exactly.
It's the laziness inherent in Scott to not look beyond, she's a girl, she's pretty, I like her hair, therefore I must be with her because it's time to move on because I don't really want to be with knives.
Yes.
And it's all a progression. The only one who jilted him has been Envy. Or Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie.
So it's funny. It's fun to say Envy because that's her character.
Yeah.
But Natalie is playing a character because she is obviously in experienced trauma.
Oh, yeah.
And she had to deal with Scott in some way. And there's got to be a reason why she left. It's not just because she was bored.
No. So Envy, and they do talk about this in the movie. Envy moved to the area her and Scott dated, and he loved her. But Envy moved back. She did to him
what he did to Kim.
Except he didn't leave for a person. She left because she missed her quote unquote best friend Todd.
Right.
And that's, so yeah, each of the X's has a number. And weirdly, Scott's 0. He doesn't have a number. He's 0. If you notice, he wears a 0 shirt. Right. They make references to him being a 0. The zeros kind of like follow him around. And then you get Matthew Patel. He's number 1. He's Wrath. He's the first boyfriend, the evil ex. He is the one who comes in and he's like, "Did you get my email?"
Right.
And
it was so long. And I'm so bored.
And what's really funny is O'Malley is also, he makes fun of the hipster lifestyle.
Yeah.
So he, because Matthew, he's got his demon hipster girl.
Chicks.
Yeah, the chicks that dance with him. And there's a lot of references. Como is one of the biggest hipsters in the whole movie, even though he's such an ancillary character. But you hear him say things in the background that are such hipster things. Like literally, at one point he said, they literally just listened to Clash at Demon Head sing. And he goes, there's so much better live.
Yeah, I know. I saw.
You just saw them live. And then at one point you hear him say something about how the comic was better than the movie.
It's almost like he's the ignored narrator.
He really is. He is he's leading the story and he's like he is on the fourth wall. He is the fourth wall.
He's the fourth wall critic.
Yes, really. So Matthew is the low-level bad guy, evil ex, who starts the whole thing off. And of course, Scott, after his is like the Bollywood of it all. And it was done like a Bollywood dance.
Yeah, I liked it.
And so Matthew is played by Satya Baba. And if I said that wrong, I am so sorry. He is the only British actor in this movie because Edgar didn't want British actors since he's done so many movies that are British-based. And so he actually pretended to be American when he auditioned. But his scene with Matthew Patel, like I said, is very Bollywood and intentionally so. It's almost like they said it when I was reading and doing some of my research, it was like this was done as a musical, but the fight scenes were the musical scenes.
Right.
And so, yeah, his was the Bollywood. And I do have a love of Bollywood dancing.
I think they also link that to Ramona being everywhere.
Yeah.
She's just everywhere. So her boyfriends are going to reflect those places she's run to.
And also, it just also shows that, like, Ramona doesn't know who she is. Because she changes her hair constantly. And hey, don't get me wrong, I change my hair constantly too, girlfriend. I don't do it weekly like she does it. But if she takes on the personality of the boy that she's with at the time. Because when she's with somebody else, they beat up on people. She bullies people. Right. And when she's with the other one, they did this. It's just that she takes on, and with Scott calms her. Because he's lazy. She takes on that calm, even though maybe she's not going in the sloth aspect of it, but she's taking on his calmer aspects, which could be a good thing.
I think Ramona's a product of trauma.
Yes, again, definitely.
She responds this way because she's integrating herself with whoever she's around. Mm-hmm. Even though she stands out physically because she's got the colored hair.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That is all something to protect her.
Yeah.
But she integrates her personality into their social group.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And speaking of hair, on a side and mentioning Como, when Scott is at the party and he's like, have you seen a girl with hair like this? And he holds up the picture.
I know, I love that.
That is one of the best. Oh my God.
I love that so much. It's one of my favorite parts.
I would literally get that picture tattooed on my body somewhere just because I love that. And that would be like the most obscure reference. And if anybody got it, they got it. And if they didn't, wouldn't matter.
Right.
I love that. So let me it's a little bit about the actors, and this is just because this is really cool information. And again, I am all over the place, y'all, so just bear with me. This is taken from IMDb, but I loved it, so I'm going to read it to y'all. It says, at least 4 actors in the movie have been in comic book and or superhero themed movies and or TV series. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Ramona, played Gwen Grayson in Sky High, which I love Sky High. That is a good movie. The Huntress in Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn in 2020.
And they wanted her to be Squirrel Girl in the X-Men.
Oh, I didn't know that. Michael Cera was the voice of Robin in the Lego Batman series, which I did not know that. Chris Evans obviously played the Human Torch in Fantastic Four movies and Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Brandon Routh was Superman in Superman Returns and the Atom in the Arrowverse. Brie Larson was Captain Marvel in the MCU. Aubrey Plaza played Lenny Busker in Legion, but we also know she is the Green Witch in Agatha All Along.
Right.
So this was written way before that. Nelson Franklin played a bit role in the Many Heads One Tail. And Captain Marvel, sorry. And Mae Whitman is the voice of Batgirl, Wonder Girl, and Stephanie Brown in DC's Superhero Girls. Thomas Jane played the title role in The Punisher. But back a little bit of Mae Whitman. Mae Whitman is also the voice of Katara in Avatar. In the animated Avatar movie. Or
Okay.
cartoons, sorry. But yeah, she's Katara.
Okay.
You hear it. You can, when you watch it, you're like, oh my God, I know her voice. And then you're like, oh my God, it's Mae Whitman. I love, oh my God, why can't I think of the whole name of the show though? It's Avatar.
Which one?
The cartoon.
Which one? It's 2.
The original.
Oh, The Last Airbender?
Yeah, that's, oh my God, I blanked on the Airbender
Yeah, there's
part.
the second one though, which is the Korra.
Yeah, but that's not Avatar. It's not the same. Korra. I know there are Korra fans, but I can't get around Korra. I like the idea of some of the characters' storylines in Korra that were in Avatar.
Oh, okay.
But I really.
No, I just honestly didn't know what you were
Yeah.
trying to get at. So I was like,
No,
well,
it's
maybe
just I like it.
Okay.
Okay, so Sex Bomb. Everybody had to learn how to play their instruments from scratch, except for Michael Cera. He could actually play the bass. He had to like dumb down his bass playing. But all of the Sex Bomb songs were done by Beck, and
Yeah.
and actually Beck does a lot of the vocals for a lot of the songs as well. And I am a huge Beck fan, so that worked great for me. I gotta stop with the ums.
So here's one of the things I have for the Sex Bombs.
Okay.
I was writing my impressions.
Okay.
Okay, I was trying to give an honest analysis of the music because I love music. I just don't listen to it as much as you do.
Their music is very gritty.
Right. So I've got, these are my feelings on it. Chaos, insecurity, identity.
Yes.
Those are the things I get out of their music. Beck has this raw garage rock tracks, that he does for this. They usually are like part of Scott's emotional immaturity. And I think it has nothing to do with the other band members. It is really more about his stuff.
Yes.
And they're all a reflection of him. It's messy, it's unrefined. Songs like We Are Sex Bomb and Garbage Truck are loud, unrefined, impulsive. And they're basically Scott at the first of the film. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
And without direction, a directionless sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very rough, very unpolished compared to the people that they're up against, except for maybe Crash and the boys.
Yeah. But that's just what I got out of, when I, go back through my memories of Sex Bob-omb's performances. They start getting direction about the time Scott starts getting mad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because when they hit that last song right before the big battle at the end, which is was that Garbage? No, what did they do at the end? Oh my God, I can't remember the song they played at the end. It wasn't Garbage Truck. They did Garbage Truck with right before Patel came in.
Right, that was their first performance.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we are Sex Bob-omb. We're here to make you think.
Feel sad
and think about stuff. Yeah. So, the music is very important, and you hear throughout all these different bands that were just very integral at that time, in that music scene.
Well, it's like Crash and the Boys when you mentioned them.
Yes, they have the shortest songs.
Yeah, but it's Knives. That's Knives. Mm-hmm. They're kind of reflecting her because it's that sadness, that despair.
Yeah.
Because she's starting to understand that Scott isn't into her. And Ramona's right there.
Yeah, but she's still kind of oblivious.
She is kind of oblivious, but they're directing the emotion. The music's directing it.
And Knives is passed out. Well, not yet. Not yet. She doesn't pass out until the boys come on stage.
But it's like
the band comes on stage.
It's like a parody of like that adolescent heartbreak.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were kind of aiming for, was to reflect that.
Yeah.
What's about to happen. The part that's about to break.
Literally the one song is called So Sad, and they just go, so sad. And that's it.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is. I think that's like the early stage Scott and Knives romance is over, and you're starting to see that flip about to happen.
What I love is that we have Stephen Stills is our lead guitar singer and lead vocal,
He's the talent.
And then you have young Neil. and again, if you have...
Henceforth known as Neil.
And I love that. So the Stephen Stills and young Neil instead of Neil Young. I like that reference. It's a great reference. Again, I'm a music nut. There's a lot of alliteration in names. And I'm not sure if this is a Brian Lee O'Malley thing or not. I've never really read any of his other graphic novels. But I wonder, because we've got Gideon Graves. Gideon Gordon Graves.
Right.
We have Stephen Stills. We have Roxy Richter. We have Lucas Lee. Wallace Wells. You're gonna, it's this alliteration that you get this back and forth. I dig alliteration. I use it a lot. But Wallace Wells is weirdly one of my favorite characters in both the graphic novels and in the movie. Wallace is that I have no fucks to give. I have wisdom. I am nosy. I am a bitchy little bitch. But I don't really care. So like I care enough to want to know, but I don't care enough to do anything about it. Like I'm not going to really help you. I might give you advice because you're here. But if you weren't here, I wouldn't care. And his relationship with Scott's sister is just fucking funny.
But it's more like he's the institution with which all the inmates surround.
Kind of, yeah.
So he's not going anywhere.
No.
And he doesn't care.
Nope.
But he's fully aware. Mm-hmm. And he's there
in his little basement apartment.
Housing the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
So he's perfectly fine with all the craziness going on around him.
Yeah.
He observes it. He helps along when he feels like it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't help at all when he doesn't feel like it, and he definitely will institute some rules, but he will also break every one of them.
He's an instigator. So, as soon as Scott says, just don't tell my sister, he's already told her.
He texted in his sleep.
Yeah. she's like, he's like, how did you know? Well, Wallace told me. He's passed out. Okay.
The phone's in his hand, and he texted while asleep.
While asleep. Or when he went to the bathroom.
With a flip phone, which is super hard to do.
I know. But and then when he got up and he went into the bathroom on the phone, and he didn't even have time to actually do anything in the bathroom before the phone rings in the other room. Right. And it's his sister yelling at him about dating a high school girl. An Asian high school girl at a Catholic school with the uniforms. So if that isn't a fetish, I don't know what is. And everybody kind of gives him side eye for that, but mostly Stacy gives him
as well. They should.
Yeah, as well they should, because dude, Scott, that's some creepy shit there, right there. And when Wallace goes with him to the high school to pick her up, and she's like, "Did you want to know who's gay in my class?" And Wallace goes, "Does he have glasses?" It's which is funny later on when Stacy brings her date to the concert and he's got glasses and Wallace is hitting on him the whole entire time. And he's like, I'm not gay. I'm not gay. He's just protesting, but he's not actually saying those words. And then next thing you know, he's making out with Wallace, and Stacy's like, Wallace, not again. So this is a history of him stealing her boyfriends. And so, yeah, Wallace is, I freaking love him, but he is the voice of wisdom, even when he's an instigator. I love how in the first fight, he's like, fight. And then when they get to Lucas Lee, he's like, fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's like, okay, I've already been here. I don't care now.
So let's talk really quick, because I want to hit some emotional things.
Okay.
Knives' journey.
Knives
got an arc throughout this, which I think is probably the most poignant for me. Is the most poignant of them all, because you see the full arc.
Yes.
Everyone else, you're seeing just like the end results or the middle results. You're not seeing their start. You're not seeing their end.
No.
With Knives, however, you get to see her first love.
Yep.
And then you get to see that end and heartbreak, and then her find herself and not need other people.
No, I mean, and she does date young Neil for a minute,
right.
But
that's to get to Scott. That was a use and not really a relationship.
And honestly, she's a bit badass, because
she is.
Not only does she get her highlights punched out of her, I mean, by Todd Ingram, because Todd's a dick. I'm not afraid to punch a girl. Dude, you're an asshole.
I'm an artist.
What the fuck does that mean?
Oh, you said he's a rock and roll
something like that.
Or something?
So now there's a member of the band that is in the movie but doesn't say anything. And this one is the one who kind of rats out. And it's the person with the glasses. It's the drummer.
Right.
You see them in the movie. They don't have a speaking line, but if I remember correctly, they're the one who actually rats Todd out to the... And gets him to eat the gelato.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. To the vegan police.
Because he's insufferable?
Yes. Because he is. But yeah, so Knives is very innocent, and you can see she's very content to just spend time with Scott, doing the same things day in and day out, going to Goodwill.
Well, because she's young.
She's a kid, yeah.
Because once she does grow up and get her maturity and stuff, she's going to grow past Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, sure, she's the perfect age, but that's the same age that Legos are good. At some point. And I'm not saying you can't play with Legos as an adult, but what I'm saying is you get to do these things at a certain age because you have the time. You don't have the responsibility. And right now, Knives has no responsibility, and Scott doesn't have any.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott chooses to ignore his responsibilities. Knives just doesn't have them yet. You get to see her pain and her heartbreak, and then the resilience afterwards, all is this one big encompassing thing. And honestly, I think within the entire story, she's the one that has the hero's journey.
She really does.
And I think that she gets to be that baseline for what everyone should have been looking at.
Yeah.
And they should have been aiming for what Knives was going through. And I think some people saw that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important.
Ramona actually saw it.
Right. And it's not anything that they had the strength to do. Despite the fact they were all badass, they didn't have the strength to do what Knives was able to do.
Yeah.
Which is to say goodbye.
Oh, yeah. At the very end, definitely. She was able to, and she said, you fought for her all this time. Go to her, and he felt bad for that half a minute, but she's like, no, go, because she didn't need him anymore.
Yeah, she's fine.
She didn't even go there to fight Gideon. She went there to fight Ramona, and it wasn't until, because, unfortunately, I feel like that is a young, immature thing, but it happens a lot, is we blame the other woman and not the man.
Or the other person.
Or the other person, and not the person who's actually doing the cheating. We blame the person that they cheated with. And I never understood that. I grew up watching, those TV shows.
It's because you want to fight for the thing that you think you want. But if you wanted that thing so badly, you should have been able to see that from the start, that they weren't going to be the person you needed them to be.
Or why would you fight for somebody who obviously doesn't give a shit enough?
Yeah, true.
So why fight that person? Be pissed because you don't know. Did they know about you? If they knew about you, yeah, then they're assholes too. But still, they're not my main focus. It would be the person who did the deed. So yeah, she does go after Ramona. But when he tells her, we need to fight him, when he has a second life and he comes back.
Well, he admits.
Yeah.
He says, I cheated on both of you. I'm the bad guy.
Yes. And he does admit that because he has self-awareness at that point.
Right.
So Scott does have some growth, which kind of goes right out the window when he manages to not fight Nega Scott. He just shoots the shit with him, quote unquote, shoots the shit, and they decide to have brunch the next day.
I actually think that's just him coming to terms with himself.
True.
I think that's him acknowledging his weaknesses. Doesn't mean he's perfect. Doesn't mean that he's going to avoid doing that. It just means now he's self-aware. There's a difference between being this oblivious narcissist and being very aware of your failures and your failings, and that gives you the chance to work on them later. And
that could be the case where, Nega Scott is all of his failures and his negativity and the bad things about him. So having a relationship with that, he's doing shadow work, guys. He's doing shadow work.
Right. But he purged himself of that. I think that's kind of what that means.
True. And they're going to go shoot the shit and have some brunch, at the Waffle House or whatever the hell they're going to go. Because I don't know where there's Tim Hortons, because they're in they're in Canada. So, which I'm really envious about. So there you go. And now let's see. We have Aubrey Plaza, who is Julie Powers. Julie, I think one of the greatest things they ever did with Julie was they kept her censored.
Right.
And I love that when he's like, what's happening with your mouth? They acknowledge that it's being censored. And she's like, don't pay attention what the fuck is going on with my mouth, and it's censoring. Bleep. And now they had to bleep Envy when she tells, because to keep it as a PG movie, they had to do that with her line when she says the F word, because Scott tells Todd that he's a cocky cock. So because of that, they wanted to keep that line in there, so they had to bleep out her fuck.
They had so many, and that was their limit.
And like I said, all the other fucks were.
But it works
out.
Because she's talking to her at the time, so it's almost like an area effect.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's an AOE of Julie Powers. So Julie Powers is a bitch on wheels. Don't get me wrong, but she is quite a powerful.
She's Jiminy Cricket.
I don't know, because she just.
I think she's a Jiminy Cricket. I think she's she cuts through all of the bullshit, tells you directly that you're a fucking asshole.
She does not like Scott. She hates Scott. But I think
but Scott shouldn't like Scott.
Well, she's friends with Envy, and you could tell. Well, not friends with Envy. Envy does not care.
She is devoted to Envy.
Exactly. She thinks she's friends with Envy. Envy doesn't give a shit about her. And Julie does not want him to date Ramona in the beginning. And when she finds out that he's with her, she gets pissed. She was dating Steven Stills at one point.
Right.
And you see that in the movie. Now, Steven goes on this whole, in the graphic novels, he goes through this whole emotional journey where he actually recedes into himself, because you can see a little bit of his self-doubt, especially right before when Crash and the boys,
when he's losing his shit and he's saying everything, but it's,
you can't hear it because the music is playing.
So it's subtitled.
Yeah. So when Crash and the boys are playing and he's losing his mind, you can see he has those insecurities. They grow. And as the graphic novel goes on, he ends up living with, I think, another guy. I don't remember exactly, but basically he comes to the conclusion that he's gay. But it's something they don't touch on in the movie, but because it's not that big of a plot point, and it's not that important.
Well, they don't have that kind of time.
No.
And let's face it, even Kim, who has more of a role,
in the comics,
in this theme, doesn't get much time.
No, and so like in the battle with the Katanyagi twins,
right?
That battle, they capture Kim and they hold her while they're fighting, and then Scott has to go and save Kim, and but they obviously couldn't do that, and they couldn't do that partly for time and partly because the actors who play the Katanyagi twins didn't speak English very well, and so they were doing a lot of hand gestures to try to explain to them what they needed to do. Why they didn't have a translator, I don't know, but in my research, nothing explained that very well. So they really were
Could have been time.
Might have been.
Yeah.
But they just ended up not continuing with that bigger story.
I think that's fine. I think you get a lot across in the animated battle.
Oh, yeah.
That you don't really need to have.
And that is, again, that's in the graphic novel. There are literal scenes. So when Brian O'Malley was writing the graphic novel, those are places he knows in Toronto.
Right.
The library, the different venues, a lot of them are real places. And when you can look at the scenes in the graphic novel and then look at the scenes in the movie, everything from like the freaking stairwell in the library to like, just like I said, the different venues, they're taken straight from it. I feel like Ramona's apartment in the movie is perfect. And funnily enough, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she made a point of memorizing every tea that's listed. Right. And they're like, "Wait, you don't have to memorize it. We'll give you a list, and you can just read the list like you had memorized it." She's like, "No," and she memorized every one of those teas. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you, because that is one of my favorites.
I love that she ended with Earl Grey.
Yeah.
That's my favorite tea.
I love how she goes through all of the teas.
And consequently, it's actually the only actual tea that she listed.
No, she did. Those are all teas, but some of them are Celestial Seasons names, so they have weird names.
No, I'm saying they're not actually tea. Tea has to have tea in it. It has to be tea leaves. All of those are not teas. Those are herbal teas, which are not actually tea.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm saying that the only actual tea that she mentioned is the Earl Grey. Now, that's a very snobbish thing.
Yes.
I'm just saying, technically, that was the only tea
Pinkies
mentioned.
up, guys.
And Earl Grey is wonderful.
It tastes like perfume. I just don't like perfumes. Not like that. So, let's see. Roxy Richter. Roxy, my girl. She angry. But she's justifiably angry because she realized that she was an experiment. That she was a learning experiment for Ramona, and she didn't like that because I don't know who wants to be somebody's experiment. I don't know who wants to be, unless you don't care and you're like, dude, okay, I'll give you the experience. Nobody wants that unless that's something that they don't care about. And I don't think because even then, like when they're fighting and she says, I was bi-curious, and then Roxy goes, well, now I'm bi-furious, because she didn't like that aspect. And what's funny though is that Ramona was warning him so Roxy's number 4.
Constantly.
And she was constantly reminding him. Every time he'd say, "Your evil ex-boyfriends," and she'd say, "Evil exes."
Right.
And he wasn't getting it
Nope.
until Roxy appeared. And now Roxy appears earlier in the alleyway, and he punches upward, and "You punched me in the boob." I'm like, damn. Roxy, I love her outfit. I love everything about Roxy.
The thing about Roxy is she is the only one of the exes, the evil exes, who has a legitimate beef.
Oh, yeah.
And she's also the one that's not fighting Scott.
No, she's fighting Ramona.
She's mad at Ramona. She's not mad at Scott. Scott's just in the way of her getting back at Ramona.
Because she's part of the League. And
Yeah.
so because she's part of the League of 7 Evil
Right.
Exes, she has to fight him.
But she's mad at Ramona.
She's mad at Ramona.
She's angry at her because she is hurt.
And
And she didn't like, it's Knives and Scott again is the same kind of thing, except this is what would happen if they never had that catharsis of the end where Scott admits he was wrong and says he's sorry and means it. Roxy never got that.
Nope. No, she
All
didn't.
she did was get someone leaving and not explaining anything. And of course she was easy to recruit from Gideon, by Gideon.
Oh, yeah. And I love her. I love her belt. That belt whip is brilliant. I want to use that on a D&D character in some way, shape, or form. I don't
It's
even...
not a whip, but yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but something like that. And again, she is... she has some of the greater lines, she's like telling him to fight your own battles, and Ramona's holding his hands to fight because he's like, "I can't punch a girl," and Ramona's like, I'm gonna make you punch a girl,"
Right.
And this is funny because he can't punch a girl, and it was right after Todd punched Knives, so that gives you a little bit more of not so much respect for him, but
A separation of the characters.
separation.
Yes.
So I skipped Lucas Lee. I was trying to do them in order, but I did skip Lucas Lee. Lucas Lee, Chris Evans, uses his own, the bodyguards, or not the bodyguards, but the body doubles are actually Chris Evans' body doubles that he has used in the past. And that's what's great about that scene with all the body doubles.
Right.
He is a very arrogant actor. And they go to watch him play, to film a movie in Toronto, in an area that apparently is very popular place in Toronto.
What's funny is that he's beating up Scott, and Scott's still wanting his autograph.
Yeah, and then at the end, like after he blows up into a bunch of coins, he's like, "Oh, I didn't get his autograph." I love Wallace is like, "I want to have his adopted babies."
When he says, "Oh, well, that's fine," he's going to help Scott up, and then he punches him.
Yeah.
Scott goes, "You are a good actor."
Yeah. He's like, "I'm up for an Oscar." And it's Chris Evans being able to play a fun role. Before I really kind of knew who Chris Evans was, because this is before I got into the MC universe, and it was, looking back, I'm like, holy crap, that was.
It's hard to see past the facade of the characters that he has played. Mm-hmm. But he's done many movies. Knives Out. Mm-hmm. That's one we need to watch together. I think you'll like that. It's good. He plays different characters, and it's startling.
Oh, God,
because you keep expecting Captain America, and Captain America's not there. That's a character.
Oh, yeah.
It is as hard to get away from as watching John Krasinski
Play anybody but Jim.
anything but Jim in The Office.
Yep.
So I understand that. And there's that dynamic shift that you have to do whenever you see this movie, because he is playing such an arrogant ass, and that's really not him.
Yeah.
Even in the movie that we saw that was What's Your Number with Brie Castellini,
Yes.
which we'll mention her at the end here, is that, he played an arrogant guy there too, but he was also very sweet.
Yes.
This is just arrogance upon arrogance. He stacks the arrogance up.
Yes.
And it's completely a comical version of an actor.
It really is. And Lucas Lee is just not a good person. So I can understand why she left him. He is a dick. But he's an evil ex. And
He's also the one that was defeated by
his own arrogance, because that's why he's pride.
Yeah, by his own arrogance. He was not defeated by fisticuffs or anything else. He actually defeated himself.
Because Patel was Patel's sword? Oh my God, how did he defeat Patel? How do I not remember this?
He did the
symbol. The symbol. Okay,
symbol.
sorry. My brain went blank on that. So he threw the symbol, and that's how Patel turned into coins, like you do in a video game. And then Lucas Lee, his pride got him, and he did a grind down this long and twisted staircase.
Which I'm sure is very famous.
Probably is.
In Toronto.
Again, don't know because I never got to go. And he crashes, and it looks like he's miles away when he crashes. I know. And then he turns into a bunch of coins, and that's when Scott goes, "Oh, I didn't get his autograph." And then there is, Envy kind of sneaks in there a little bit. But then there's Todd. And Todd is gluttony. He is a super vegan. He has...
Super arrogant.
Punches the highlights out of knives. And Scott headbutts him.
Right.
Because he fools him into drinking a cup. So Todd, being a super vegan, has the ability to read minds and also make laser beams. I don't know. He's got a lot of abilities.
He has magic powers.
He's got magic powers because apparently your brain is clogged with dairy. That's why we only use 10% of it, according to him. So because he can read Scott's mind, Scott is like, I'm going to offer him a cup of coffee. And he's like, one of these has soy in it. Da, da, da. He's like, I'm going to take that one because I'm not going to drink. You're trying to fool me.
I can read your mind, and I know that you got half and half in this one.
Yes. So he drinks it, and then Scott goes, well, I actually put it in that one because I thought about putting it in the one I'm holding, but this one is soy. So
he tricked him into drinking half and half.
But it wasn't the first time he has taken liberties with his veganism, and
which the vegan cops tell him.
Yes, that he had not only gelato, which, when he goes, oh, gelato is not vegan, I could say, hey, you know what? He didn't know. But he had chicken parm. Dude, it says it in the name. Chicken's not vegan.
Chicken's not vegan?
So he loses his power. They take his abilities, and that's when Scott headbutts him. And he bursts into...
coins.
Lots of coins. And the amount of coins that they burst into is usually reflective of their number. Gideon's...
It'd be their level.
Yeah, their level. So Gideon is all 7s when you get to Gideon. So I believe that Todd's is 3s. Todd even wears a number 3 shirt.
Right.
So, and there's 3 members in his band, and there's so like they all have... Lucas Lee has his tattoo is the symbol on his skateboard. It's his company, and it's 2 L's backwards, but it's at 2, so again, alliteration, but also reflective of their numbers. So when we get to Roxy being lust is 4. I don't remember the symbolism with Roxy, where the 4s were, but that doesn't mean they're not there. I
don't know.
So we know that now after Roxy, we have the Katanyagi twins, which is 5 and 6. And that is more of an air music battle than an actual battle. And they just are getting their asses handed to them. But at this point, you see that Ramona and him had a fight after Roxy. And so she kind of she ghosts him for a few days. And then all of a sudden when she's at this concert with Mr. G, Gideon Graves. And Scott doesn't realize who he is at first, but then when he realizes it, he kind of gets a bit pissed. So Scott sees Gideon with Ramona, and they just bust out all of their moves because, again, they're fighting the Katanyagi twins, and it's amp versus amp. And they did not know that. They're like, oh, who goes first? Are we going after them? No, they're going at the same time.
Amp to amp. Amp versus amp.
Yep. So the only thing I think is not fair is that you've got a band going up against sound systems. Like what
I think they were just DJs. I'm not sure exactly what that is.
Mixers, I don't
or
know.
maybe it's just electronica.
Maybe, I'm not sure. But, hey, it's still a talent I couldn't do because, again, I wouldn't know what all those buttons were.
I saw them pushing things, and it was single keys, so I'm not sure they were doing much else.
Well, again, lost in translation. So they fight with these not invisible, but these music sound-made monsters. And they've got the twin-headed dragon and then this big gorilla that comes out. And obviously, Sex Bob-omb wins. And when Scott goes out, so earlier on, he's talking to Wallace to get some heart-to-heart there. And he's like, you might need to, Wallace says, you might need to break out the big L word. And he goes, lesbian? And he goes, no. He goes, lesbians? So Scott has that in his head like the idiot that he is. And so when he finally runs up to Ramona, after not seeing her for a bit, he's like, I am in lesbians with you. And she's like, what? Yeah, crackhead? What? So that's when she's like, we have to break up. And that she's going to go back with Gideon.
And he realizes he said lesbians
Yes.
instead of love.
And Gideon, the devious motherfucker that he is like happy-go-lucky. He's like, I love the sex bombs. And they're like, ba-bomb. And he is, he's going to sign them immediately and not even worried about the competition. He's just going to sign them. And Scott's like, I can't do it. And they're not going to be able to do it without me. And of course, young Neil, he's like, I can do it. So, young Neil takes over as Scott's place and they sign with Gideon. And Scott's like, okay, well, now I'm lost. I have no band. I have no girlfriend. What do I do? He needed that. He needed to hit that rock bottom.
Right.
Before he could start to climb his way up. So Gideon Graves is an egomaniac. He's a New Yorker. No offense to New Yorkers. I come from a long line of them. But that is where, but then again, so is Ramona. She's from New York as well. Gideon is basically a music mogul of sorts. He has clubs and he produces, bands. So, he's got that following. It's when Scott says to Ramona, would you want to come see my band? And she's like, oh, you have a band. Because in her mind, she knew. She put two and two together.
The control is still there for Gideon.
Well, that and like, she knew that, well, Gideon's going to find me. Because if I'm involved in anybody in the music industry, he's going to be able to find me in a heartbeat. So, and he did. And he has this control over her. And when they're in the subspace later on, she points out and she's like, I don't know. It's like he can control my mind. And he's like, oh, okay. And she turns around and she goes, no, like literally he can control my mind. And she has a microchip in the back of her head.
Right.
And it's a little bit of a nod to, like I was saying earlier, Gideon has in the graphic novels, he has these pods for his ex-girlfriends, and he was keeping them all in this stasis so he could date them whenever he wants. Because Gideon's a piece of shit.
He's a control freak.
If you notice, what did he do to Sex Bob-omb? He put them in suits, and what is Kim wearing? She's wearing a little French maid costume.
Right, and he positioned them as a
house band, as sorts.
Kind of like like you would put a piece of art somewhere to show them that you own it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Not that you care about it,
you just
that you own it.
And he's up on his little pedestal, his pyramid pedestal. And so there's a lot of sevens with Gideon. He has the seven, when he dies, it's always like 7,000 coins or 7 million coins or whatever. There's always a seven with him. He has there's just Ben Schwartzman, right? Did I say his name right? Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Jason.
Jason. I was thinking of Ben Schwartz.
Yeah.
But it's not Jason Schwartzman. Yeah. Sorry, guys. And I love him. I love him in the fact that, again, he was the guy who in Parks and Rec who owned the he had the movies.
Right.
And he didn't want to change his movie, his rental place, but then he ends up like embracing the whole porn thing later on.
Right.
He is one of the characters in Moonlight Kingdom.
Yep.
He does a lot of what's his face?
Wes
Anderson movies.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm blanking. I'm fading fast. My knowledge and my brain is petering out. So yeah, he's another one of those very, very broad stroke actors that I appreciate. But Gideon is devious, and his control over Ramona is quite disturbing, to say the least. And he, I don't know, Jason Schwartzman does a great job. And like I said, when you look at the comic book and you look at the actors, just the casting was perfect. Just beautiful.
Scott's confrontation with Envy. I think that merits some discussion. Envy is Scott's ex-girlfriend, and she's an evil ex, but not because he dumped her. She's just kind of, I think, mad at him for not being better? I don't know.
I mean, she dumps him for Todd. But
so why is she so mad at Scott?
Because I think...
Is it because she made the wrong decision?
Either she made the wrong decision, or she is one of those people that, I dumped you, now I don't want to see you do better than me.
I think she has regrets.
Maybe.
I think when we're saying the clash at Demon Head, she feels she made a deal with, her worst demons in order to attain the level that she has. So I think that she has regrets. And I think you see it at the end when Todd is defeated. And when Scott says Natalie to her.
Yeah, and she's like, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
I think you get a sense right there that she is actually pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that she's been wearing this coat of evil in order to insulate herself from everything, because she does have regrets.
Yeah.
Of how she got to where she is and what she's doing while she's there. She is kind of that person that went to the crossroads, got exactly what she wanted, and didn't want it anymore.
Yep. No, I think you're right on that one.
And I think that's kind of where that boils down, is she's kind of hoping Scott will win. But then Scott will choose her, but he doesn't.
Also, I think I think she realizes that she's lost her grasp on him. So there's a control. She makes him feel poorly about his haircut.
Yeah.
To the point where every time his hair is mentioned, that damn toque appears on his head. And so when she realizes that she does not have that ability, that might be when she's like, oh, wow, maybe again, she is envy, literally. So she's envious of what other people have. So even if it's lack of control, that's something she's envious of. She doesn't have the control over Scott anymore that she had once had.
Yeah. No, I agree. So the clash at Demon Head, when they do that performance, it's all like very sleek, very commanding. It's all very polished and emotionally detached.
Oh, yes.
This is all
it's a show, literally.
It is a demon's presentation. Okay, so this is that lure of perfection. And you can see it as that, well, she made a deal. I mean, this is the sense I get when I'm seeing this performance is, she made a deal to be this good.
Yeah.
To be this polished and everything else. She's the elite.
Yeah.
Why is she here? Why is she doing this?
Yeah, why is she
Because she's envy. Ultimately, she's still going to have those faults.
Oh, yeah. And she's showing off to the people that she used, the little people that she once knew.
And she doesn't have to do that.
No.
But that's the only way she can feel anything.
Yeah, because she knows that she's got her little sycophants like Julie, you know.
And everything is still unresolved, even for her, because there was no resolution between their relationship. Mm-hmm. She still has that draw in order to have some kind of... He actually does her a favor at the end of their arc by acknowledging
Who
and
she
by
once
walking
was.
away.
Yep.
He kind of helps her because she finally also has resolution here. And I think that performance is like the turning point. That is where Scott has to confront his emotional baggage that he's been carrying around about her that has influenced the way he treats other women.
No, you're right. He has to, with the way she treated him, he has to turn around and realize that he can't do that to other people.
Right.
And again, his, and like was Todd that much of an improvement? Like she had this idea of Todd on a pedestal, otherwise she wouldn't have gone back to him.
Plus the grass is always greener.
Yeah. And that's
so
it.
She kept flipping back and forth because the grass is always greener and she's always envious of what she doesn't have.
Yeah. And like when they're all sitting backstage, she's got Todd right next to her, but all she keeps doing is focusing on Scott and Ramona. And basically what she's just trying to dig and get information from them. And it's definitely, you see, the envy and what she does not have anymore, even though she's got Todd, who she's supposedly in love with, right next to her.
And let's talk about Ramona real quick.
Yeah.
Because this is a large part of this movie is all about Ramona. Mm-hmm. And it's about what everyone mistakes about Ramona is thinking that she's very cool.
And
she's not cool. She's emotionally detached.
And she's aloof because she is so emotionally detached.
Right. So there is this point where she's protecting herself emotionally, but she's also trying to protect others. Mm-hmm. In this weird way of just not dealing with the things and keep running from it.
Yes.
And in that way, she's very much like Scott, in which she just ignores the thing and runs from it, but she's self-aware of it.
Yes.
Where Scott's really oblivious.
Yeah, no, he's oblivious.
Unless someone points it out, he doesn't even see it.
Yeah.
But she hasn't done the emotional labor to get away from these toxic relationships. She keeps going back to them.
Yeah.
And we see that reflected in Gideon at the end, where she goes back to him.
Yeah.
The chip in her head is a representation of that inability to deal with a toxic relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And she's not strong enough. What Knives is able to do is something that Ramona has not been able to do at all.
No. And
her entire life.
She could only do it when she had Knives and Scott by her side. She
right.
needed that.
And that's okay. It's okay to have support.
And that shows you that she needed the support, but she didn't want to acknowledge that she needed it for so long, which is part of her aloofness and her emotional detachment, is she couldn't acknowledge that she needed help.
Right. And then that's reflected in the Ramona theme. Mm-hmm. So when you hear it's a very basic song, very basic. It seems unfinished because she's like, "Oh, I'll be glad to hear it when you finish it."
And he's like, "What?"
But there's this vulnerability to it because it feels unfinished. Mm-hmm. And there's this intimacy because it is a song being sung to you. Mm-hmm. But it's quiet. It's introspective.
It's nothing like anything else Sex Bomb plays.
Right. And it strips away all those things that make the Sex Bomb or Crash and the Boys. It's not loud.
Nope.
It's honest. Even if it isn't saying much, it's trying to imply it through the music itself.
Yeah.
That this is an intimate moment of him just saying that he wants a connection.
Yeah.
And I think that is even if it's ultimately kind of stupid, that he just kind of like, it's kind of like an Andy Dwyer kind of
Yeah.
song.
April's, yeah.
Right.
November.
But there is a very, very much an intimate level to the song, which it's not asking for a lot. It
No.
is just asking for you to acknowledge the intimacy.
And if you really want to do a comparison, while Ramona says a lot, she doesn't really say anything about herself.
Right.
And the song doesn't say anything about Ramona. It really doesn't.
No.
And so if it can be seen as a reflection totally of her and her personality. Yeah, I totally get that. She doesn't say much. She talks about her exes and why they broke up. But her and Scott really don't ever have
An actual conversation
Yes.
about themselves. Mm-hmm. Don't know where she, went to school. You don't know anything about each other.
no.
And I think that's purposeful. I think that's again, she's going to keep that distance between them. I think the implication at the end is her allowing him to start learning more about her.
Yeah.
That's the taking him with her
Oh yeah.
that she doesn't do.
And him talking with Stacy at the end, which is, again, you got Stacy who's been treated, who's like not talked down to him, but has been like outraged by everything he's done. She comes and sits next to him on the swing and she's like, but is she the one? Do you see a future with her? And he goes, yeah, with flying cars. So, I mean, that's, he has pictured, and it could be a love at first sight situation, because I don't doubt that happens. So I think with him, he really cares, and Stacy sitting there talking to him, and then going and having the whole conversation with Wallace, and then, of course, Gideon calling up, and the 5-second scene of us watching him tie his shoes, he needed that. He needed the support of knowing he had his two people, and really, while he has a lot of friends, Stacy's his sister, and Wallace is Wallace.
Essentially much like a brother.
Yeah, and so having them on his side, it bolstered him. And,
I actually think it kind of... I think
don't
it
think-
kind of hobbled him.
Well, I don't think he would have gone. Even with Gideon calling him and taunting him, I don't think he would have gone.
Maybe.
Without
but
that.
I think that, like most of his life, he's relied on them to carry him.
Maybe that's it.
Especially, we're talking about, maybe not Stacy.
Wallace has been...
But definitely Wallace has carried him because he's lived in his house, his little apartment. Mm-hmm. He's there to support him, even if he's not supporting him emotionally a lot. He supports him physically.
Yes. And that's seen in the very beginning when they go through... They label everything in the apartment, and that's Scott's is the coat and
Right.
maybe the basketball.
It's all Wallace's.
Everything is Wallace's. So, yeah, I see how they could have hobbled him, but I think he needed those two supports to convince him to do the right thing. Again, I don't think he would have continued, though. I do think it is hysterical that he's on the phone with Gideon and he's like, yes, Ramona's with me. And he screams and he's like, well, you don't have to lose get upset about it. And he's like, I just spilled hot chocolate on my crotch.
Yeah.
So, I love there's so many overlapping things that happen in scenes like that just, they make me laugh.
So at the end, Scott and Ramona, the ending is like very underplayed. Everything else has been very much a action,
Yes.
shot for shot action. And it is all about the movement of the relationship or the movement of an emotion. But at the end, they walk through the door into you don't know what.
Yes.
So it's completely unknown what they're entering into. This is them entering into a relationship together without knowing what's happening.
Exactly.
And it's not a grand romantic gesture. It's just a step. They're not flying through the door like they did before.
No.
They're not flying through the door.
They're just...
taking a step.
Yep.
And that is I don't know, I think it's an example of what's a healthy
Yeah.
kind of movement. I'm not saying that that's the way it will end up being, because you can start out in a healthy relationship. You can start out healthy, but then things can go wrong. But at this moment, I think that they are mutually vulnerable.
Yes.
And they are allowing each other that step instead of dragging one another along.
So as you see in the animated Scott Pilgrim that was released a few years ago, Scott doesn't mature much.
Right.
He still has a lot of growing to do. And his problem is that he is lazy. It always comes down to his sloth, to him
Really
being
is.
lazy. And he doesn't really put in the work to make his relationship with Ramona healthy.
Right, but if we take it as the context of just this movie.
Oh yeah, just in this movie, no, they're heading off in the right direction.
Right.
And then you're
You're allowed to infer that they will find their own place. Even if it's not together, they'll be healthier for it, like Knives.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be together. So, do you think this movie will pass the Castellini test?
Part of me wants to say yes, but part of me is really struggling because of the relationship conversations are constant throughout.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
lose it just from because the
I
whole
think
movie's
we may.
about relationships.
So let's check it out. There have to be at least 2 named women characters with at least 5 lines of dialogue each.
There are a lot of women.
This is the gimme. We have Ramona Flowers, we have Knives, we have Kim, we have Envy,
Julie.
Stacy, Roxy. They all have more than 5 lines. So it's going to pass that.
Yeah.
That's a given. Let's talk about the real conversation, which is those characters must have a conversation, not necessarily with the other woman, either not about their partner or with their partner, future or current, and not about their relationship. This is where things get a lot murkier.
Yes.
So Ramona and Knives are like the strongest presences in the entire film for the women. But most of their dialogue, if not all of it, centers around Scott.
Yes.
Or their past relationships. Knives less so more than Ramona. There are moments where Kim is having, banter about the band, not necessarily about the relationship, but it's very limited.
I know where it is.
Okay.
It's Knives. Knives talks to Scott while they're in the Goodwill, when they're looking at music, and they talk about bands, and they talk about her friends at school, and they talk about...
Aren't they talking about her friends in school in the context of them having a relationship?
Yeah, I think they are. But they talk about bands, and they talk about music. And while, yes, he does mention Envy when she picks up the Clash Demon Head, he doesn't really, they aren't talking about a relationship. All he says is, the lead singer broke my heart and, whatever, da-da-da. But they're not talking about it beyond that. They talk about where he grew up, because when she wants to see his house. And
that's part of the relationship. That's learning about someone in your relationship.
Damn it.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm saying this part's going to be very hard because
hard.
while you can say Stacy has commentary on Scott's life, Stacy's still talking about their relationship as a brother and sister.
And like Julie is just bitching about him being in any relationship.
It's not a romance. It's still a relationship.
Yeah. But I do think that maybe...
I think the closest thing you have is Kim's sarcastic remarks.
Well, and Scott and Knives talking to different people about music. Because she does talk with Neil about the band. She talks,
maybe about Envy talking to other people, not necessarily Scott, but usually it's pointed at Scott.
Yeah, but
it's very hard thing. So what do you think? Does it pass? Is there anything you can cite that says this passes?
I just want to say that just Knives talking about music in bands. That would be the only thing I could think of. And it's not a lot. She's just,
Yeah, because she talks to her friend about Scott. I was hoping there would be something.
She talks to her friend about Ramona being a fat ass and about how she's old. She's old and she's,
But that's about Scott. Mm-hmm. That's in context of the relationship. I know you want this to get through.
No. I'm just trying to literally think.
I really cannot.
Because everything is about Scott.
I'm going to have to say that this
it does not pass
isn't going to pass. It's not going to pass this one.
No, but however, it does have a diverse cast. Yes, it's a lot of white people, but there are no black people in this movie. There is no black person.
Yeah, there are.
But there are Asian people, and there are Asian people.
I think that was
different types. There are different types of Asian people. That's pretty much it. It's Toronto, Canada. I thought it would be a little bit more diverse, but maybe it's not as diverse. I don't know. Okay. I've never been there.
So the conversation, it's not gonna pass on the second one, but let's just go ahead and play it out to the end.
Yeah.
A woman integral to the plot. That's pretty easy.
It's Ramona and Knives. Right. Both are integral to the
plot.
Both
of them are integral. Without them, it could not attain the ending that it got.
Yeah, because why would he be fighting anybody's exes if Ramona it wasn't involved? So
right.
It wouldn't even, Scott Pilgrim would be still living his little sloth life.
Exactly. So it is not going to pass the Castellini.
Which is sad, but also it's literally a movie about a relationship,
Right. There is an argument to be made, and the spirit of the Castellini test is that feminism is displayed. Now, when you center men, which this is happening, it's centering someone's relationship over your own person. That is going to defeat the Castellini test. But there's an argument to be made that there is still femininity in this film because the women are strong. Everyone is treated equally and not substandard for being not male or a man. The gay men are treated equally.
Yes.
So you can say that there is equity involved.
Yes.
So in a sense, in the spirit of the Castellini test, we can say that it tries really hard.
Yes, because feminism isn't about feminizing things. It is about equity. And it's something that a lot of people forget because they hear feminist and they hear the femme part of it.
Right. But we're going to say, so while it does not pass, it's also equitable in many ways.
Yes.
How did you feel?
I still love
seeing it today?
I still love it. It still makes me happy. I could tear it apart, but I always tear apart everything I love. And yeah, I could watch it over and over again. It's one of those movies that it never disappoints me.
I enjoyed it. I always dread it because it seems like it's going to be longer than it is.
It's not a very long movie.
It always seems like it's going to be longer. And I get bogged down in the walking, nothing else happening but Scott being lazy bogs me down. But it's kind of needed because you get those moments when the music plays. And I am not necessarily music. I like music.
The music is so good.
But I'm not necessarily a music person. But when the music starts playing, I get excited. It draws me in. And I'm telling you, the music is the reason why I love this movie. It's Beck's driving rhythms.
Oh, yeah.
Those call to my autistic senses and make me really enjoy this film so much more than I would if it was just the music being in the background or the music not being a character.
The music is definitely a character in this movie.
I mean, very much so. Like you have the gorilla.
Yeah, which embodies their sound. Right,
and you have the dragons. But I feel those presences throughout the movie in different ways. From the different sounds, the different music that's being played. And it's not that much.
Nope.
There's not a lot of it in there. But what's in there is super powerful. It pulls you into the story almost like you're going into the doorway with the star on it.
Yeah. It really does.
So I think that this film is pretty much perfect in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
While it doesn't pass the Castellini, I think there's a lot going for it, and I think people should definitely see it.
Oh, definitely. It's a fun movie. You don't have to look into it too deeply. It's just a happy little romp. It's, it's a millennial hipster movie, not gonna lie. But also, and I was way too old to be, jiving on that shit, but I still dig it. I'm kind of envious that I missed that time period, because I would have thrived as a young 20-something in that millennial hipster phase of life. Unfortunately, I got to do the whole alternative grunge thing.
I didn't even get that.
Yeah, trust me, you didn't miss much.
I missed disco by a little bit.
You did it. You were a baby.
I was a teenager. They were still playing it in the 80s. They even had a whole thing about it on the radio about bringing their disco to the stadium to burn the records.
God, I mean, I grew up with disco, so I can't say anything there. So my mom
know.
that was Saturday morning cleaning was disco. Casey and the Sunshine Band was going to be a thing. It was going to get played.
Okay, let me say this because we're talking about music.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say this real quick. I hated disco
Mm-hmm.
because of the influence of people telling me I should hate disco.
Oh yeah.
But before people hated disco, I loved disco.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, when I could make up my own mind on things, I loved disco again.
I secretly hated disco. When people would mention it, I'd be like, oh yeah. But no, I've always loved it. Because again, that's my childhood. That was what I grew up listening to. Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. I mean, that's just the shit. Boogie Shoes. Gotta freaking, what is it? Wild Cherry. Play that funky music, white boy. How could you not love that?
Right.
Super Freak. Less Chic. Okay. So if you would like to watch this movie, it is on Max, YouTube TV, Hulu, Google Play, Sling TV, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and Fandango at Home. Some of them are on their streaming services, and some of them are available to rent at between $3.79 and $3.99. Now, next week's episode. Dun, dun, dun. Here are your 2 clues. This movie had a gender-bended version that starred Patrick Dempsey. Kind of obscure, but... And this is also obscure, but it was really hard to find some good clues. But both female leads played the mother of another actress in this film in 2 other movies.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
I like that. Well done. I like that one. Thank you for sharing this emotional subspace highway journey with us. This has been Once More with Feelings with Beth and Michelle. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at OMWFPod. Visit our page at oncemorewithfeelings.podbean.com or send us an email at omwfpod@gmail.com. Take a moment to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Subscribe and rate us on YouTube as well, or wherever you listen to our podcast.
We are Sex Bomb.
And we're here to make you feel sad and stuff.
There you go.
No breakup is painless. Somebody always gets hurt. What about you and that girl Knives? Who broke up with who?
I believe I broke up with her.
And was she cool with that?
Knives is with young Neil now. She's totally cool with it.
You sure about that?
Yeah, she's very mature for her age. We had a very healthy breakup. We're all peaches and gravy.
What about you and Kim?
And Kim? I can barely remember. It was high school. She had freckles.
That's it?
Yeah, it kind of ended. We changed.
That's really the whole story.
Okay, fine. I had to fight a guy to be with her, okay? I fought a crazy 80-foot-tall, purple-suited dude, and I had to fight 96 guys to get him. He was flying and shooting lightning bolts from his eyes, okay? And I kicked him so hard that he saw the curvature of the Earth. Does that make you feel any better?
Well, now you are being a total ass. Welcome to the club.